Well, welcome back to the Trampled Underfoot Podcast show. And we're your hosts, Mark Lindsay, out on the West Coast, and Eloy Escajedo over here on the East Coast. East Coast a little bit towards the south. West Coast over there a little bit up towards the north. On an end.
Just a little bit, yeah, a little bit. I think I figured it out one time. It's like 3,000 miles for me to go to Miami. So just slightly.
So by your calculations, if it's 3,000 miles for you to go to Miami, I'm just going to throw this out there. It might be 3,000 miles for me to go over there to Oregon.
You might know a shortcut.
If I take a right over there somewhere along the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, there might be some sort of little ravine where I can river my way up.
That's possible. Meanwhile, I stick to the interstates where if I take Interstate 80, I just looked at it. If I take Interstate 80, it's a 49-hour drive, and that's 3,266 miles.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So, I'd say bring a lunch.
Well, we'd have to stop along the way at different rest stops, and there's plenty to see, right? So it's not like
what you mean we? I would either have to drive there or you would have to drive here. Ain't no we until one of us has already made the drive.
So you think I'm gonna leave Vigo with a stock full refrigerator?
Okay. Well, you never know. I mean, you might have a Vigo sitter somewhere.
Well, he'd be happy if I left him like the fridge, like with a little rope on it that he could pull, and like at the bottom level have all the things that. I wonder if he'd be neat about it. If you left your dog,
know better than that. You know better than that. He'd be in that sucker. He'd be in like Flynn on day one. 3 days later, he'd be like, "Man, I'm full."
So you're saying if I left him like adequate, like let's say some sort of like a bottle. You know those tanks that have like the receptacle and they gravity feed the water?
Yeah.
So I could have like, let's say I could place like 10 of them full, and you calculate out mathematically how long the drinking.
See, I don't know how Vigo is. One of our dogs, he would pick at his food, so he'd be okay with a feeder like that. But the other dogs, the other two dogs that we've had, would never leave it. I mean, they would be there and they would eat themselves sick and then go eat some more. It's just like, if there's food, that means I have to eat it. And that's all there is to it. There's food. What are you doing? There's food. Quit messing around. Let's eat.
But there's some with timers on them, and it'll drop like some pebbles. Yeah. And then, so maybe that would work. And for a toilet, maybe I could woodwork a little toilet for him and put some water and then a little pull chain.
Doggy door.
So he sits. I'm gonna have to train him to put his legs up on the.
Yeah, let me know how that works out for you. Doggy door, man. Doggy door. Let them go in and out as they want.
See, I wouldn't do that because I don't the outside perimeter without me observing, you never know, because he's exposed to the elements and people, and I wouldn't trust that unless there was some. I could do some like bob wire for exterior, because that's another thing. It's people from the outside. You know how you leave your light on? They say, "Hey, hey neighbor, we're going out of town."
You don't tell anybody.
We're going to leave our light on, and the light stays on during the day and night, so, hey, somebody's home because the lights, You
don't tell anybody.
No, if you have trusting neighbors that, keep an eye out.
Yeah, we don't do that. We don't tell nobody. We tell people when we get back.
Well, I mean, so it just,
yeah,
it depends. But
yeah,
my old man, I remember, and I used to get a crack. I used to laugh at this. We have a nosy neighbor, and so every time my dad, okay, son, come on, let's go. We'd have to go somewhere. It could be to the freaking auto parts store, or wherever the heck, and he'd say, "Come on, son, let's go." And he'd always, as he's driving out, we have our nosy neighbor, and he's always looking, right, because he's just so nosy. And my dad, as he's driving by, and I'm in the passenger seat, and he's got his news radio on, and he slows down because the neighbor's always looking, and he turns to the neighbor from his driver's seat, and he goes like this to the neighbor. He just does this, like saying, keep an eye out. But he's doing it because he knows he's going to do that anyhow. You know what I mean? It's like a funny sort of thing. And I used to crack up about that because he's basically calling him out for being so nosy. But the other guy, since he's naturally nosy, he's like, of course I'm going to keep looking. Thank you for giving me the motivation to continue with my peeping at my neighbors.
I was out front on the deck. This has been a couple years back now. I was out front on our deck, and it sits high enough to where I can look over the fence to the street behind us. Right behind our house is a vacant lot, and I can look out the street, and I can look over our front fence out into the cul-de-sac. And they were doing some construction. They were putting a new house in over on one lot on our cul-de-sac. And I'm standing there looking, I'm like, man, that's a nice foundation they got there. It's going to be a decent size house too. Oh, I like the way they slope that driveway and everything. And I turn around and I look and oh man, he's got somebody visiting and this, that, and the other. And it suddenly struck me, I am that guy. I'm that neighbor. I knew everything going on. And I had to stop that stuff, man. I had to stop that. It's just like, what are you doing? You're being that nosy neighbor, man.
That's hilarious.
Sit your butt down and quit looking at what other people are doing. What do you care?
That is so funny.
But I don't care who you are or how old you are. If somebody's building a house and you can see it from your deck, you're going to watch.
Oh, of course. Well, it's human nature. And you know one thing within this conversation that I don't know how we opened up into it, but it's a brilliant sort of like human nature type thing. That people, I don't know if you've noticed this, and if you guys out there have noticed this, I don't know. But if you've ever been, and maybe it's a Miami thing, but please, I hope it's not, and it's not in my head, because that would mean I'm freaking nuts. But have you noticed if you're at the grocery store, and you guys are old enough to have possibly realized this, I hope I'm not nuts, but if you are standing in line, let's say, and there's other lines with other people and people walking, have you noticed that anytime you turn your head, let's say to the left, and there's people over there, or to the right or behind you as you're waiting in line, that nobody is ever looking at you? However, you are looking at everybody. And I came to the realization that humans have this little trick, or this little, I guess, social thing, where everybody takes their turn in looking and quite missing the other one looking at the other one. So there's not a double look. Generally, everybody knows what's going on in that supermarket. It's just that when they see you starting to turn your head, you just naturally turn away. And have you noticed that, or something thereabouts?
Yeah.
Okay.
It depends on the person, but yeah, if it's avoid eye contact at all costs. Yeah. And that's more prevalent in the bigger cities, I found, because here people don't care. They'll strike up a conversation with you. They just don't care. It's a small town. Did I freeze up?
Am I froze?
No, but my camera is froze up. You're not froze up.
I'm moving around.
Yeah, but on my how about me? Am I moving around at all?
No, you're frozen.
There I am. Okay, I don't know what happened there. That was a glitch.
I don't know. Let's not even talk about it, because we'll spend time talking about that situation.
Yeah, it's your edit, so
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
Well, but yeah, it depends on the person. Here locally, man, that people don't care. I mean, you'll look up from your basket and turn a look over there, and they'll wave at you. Hi, how you doing? And just strike up a conversation. It doesn't matter. But I've noticed in the bigger cities, it's this avoidance that, they see the head turning towards you and you just kind of look away or whatever.
There's a thing that I've noticed. I've never shared this with you. And it's not 100%, and it varies in depth. But I also have that trait.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of the society in which I've grown up.
Mm-hmm.
It is slightly disrespectful to over eye contact people. There's a level of there's a
there's a certain
right.
Yeah, there's a certain point to where it's like, oh hi, how you doing? And then after that, it's just like, what, do I have a bug on me or something? What?
Yeah. So I usually do a brief eye and I don't think about it, but now thinking about, I have thought about it because I've run into situations where, let's say, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but this is kind of uncomfortable. You're in the grocery store, and by the way, I don't know why all these things happen in the grocery store, but I'm just using it as an example because I have time to reflect as I'm purchasing.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be walking and you turn your head and you catch somebody else that it just so happens to be that they at the very same time were looking at you. Mm-hmm. So both eyes come in contact in a way that would only happen, apart from that mistaken situation, when you're wanting to engage with somebody. Right. And they're so far away, and yet you've done that. So not only do you know that he's caught your eye or she's caught your eye and vice versa, but that that you now have created a binding moment, yeah. And it's slightly uncomfortable because it's like, no, I didn't mean to talk to you, or I didn't mean to connect with you, sir. Sorry. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's usually, now with masks and everything, they can't tell if you're smiling. I guess they can, maybe a little bit through your eyes.
Yeah.
But I'll usually say something, howdy, or nod to acknowledge their presence and just keep going. And then,
that could be dangerous.
But I've made that high. And once I make the acknowledgement that, yeah, we made eye contact, I didn't want to either. This is uncomfortable, but that's okay. I'll make that acknowledgement, and then it's okay to avert your eyes. It's not rude. Because you made acknowledge it, hi, howdy. And then you can move on to other things and ignore the person. But let's be honest here. There are some people that you really want to make eye contact with and like it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, you had to have been pushing your cart down the aisle, look up, went, whoa. Oh, hi, how are you doing?
Yeah, that has.
So, I mean, it's not always uncomfortable.
No, it's not always uncomfortable, but I'm speaking more towards, so that's more of the hunting aspect of us.
Well, you don't even necessarily have to be actively hunting, just open to the opportunity,
Or it triggers the hunting aspect, but I'm talking about when it's the challenge, because it's another male, and you don't want. So I don't want a. So I'll give you an example. When we were kids, there was a younger kid, and we'd be riding bike and this and that, and he'd be riding bike on his own. He was a little bit younger than us. Mm-hmm. But he had this habit, and I think it was a little bit, well, I'm not even going to say, but you'd be the judge. He'd ride bike, and he'd stop, and he'd look at us, and he'd stare us down. And then he'd just keep going. And every time we'd be anywhere, he'd just stare us down, and like, is this just he wants to participate, but he doesn't know how to socially break the ice? Or does he have some sort of beef with us? What's wrong with this kid? It was sort of like a weird that I said. It seemed weird. These are things that I observed. Maybe my buddies didn't even pay attention, but I was like, why would he? What's up with that? I would think.
God knows. I mean, that might have been his version of hiking his leg on the shrub in your yard. I don't know.
I think that
some guys do try to do that. They try to assert their dominance, and I just don't have time for those kind of people. I really don't. I don't have time for it. I'm not impressed. You want to be king of this checkout line? Fine, be king. I'm paying and I'm leaving, and you and I will never see each other again. I just don't have time for you.
I will say that, though. See, I hate, because we've talked about it, but As far as checkout lines, as you know, I have issues with checkout lines.
I want to get in, get out. That's all I want.
Yeah. I want to get in, get out. That's all I want. You're right. But I've noticed, and I hate to be prejudicial here, but I'm just gonna say it seems that men will give each other, due to the fact that there's a possibility of war, right? Going to the primal thing, they will give each other adequate space. And we're talking here in Miami. I don't know if this is the same over, but when it comes to women across the board, well, across the board is kind of severe, but honestly, it's pretty close to across the board. They will park their shopping cart right in your bum. They will nudge that thing, and if you're not, and if they feel like it, they will give it a little yacky yak forward and freaking trip on, make touch your ankles with it, and they will put the groceries. You put the little bar there, they will butt their groceries up. They're basically crawling on your back.
Well, that's where my sense of humor comes in. If I feel a shopping cart in my back, well, number one, I'm usually the one throwing it up on the belt. So Linda's the one pushing the shopping cart into my back. But, if I happen to be there by myself and I'm putting stuff up there and I feel something in my back, I'm turning around. And if it's a woman, I don't care how old she is. If she's, 18 through, I don't care, 95, I'll turn around and say, "Woo, can I have dinner and a movie first?" And that it's a joke, but it kind of lets them know,
they're too close.
Yeah. And that kind of, backs off. Now, as far as shoving their groceries right up against yours on the belt, the real easy way to handle that is put all your stuff up there and put that little rubber thing about a foot behind it. So you got that space.
Dude, trust me.
Shove it up against that belt all you want to. Don't you move that thing. I put that there. That's a border crossing. You don't touch that.
Like, you have any say if they feel like, if they no, it's well, I did tell you the other time. It's just, look, man, I'm with you on that. I'm just saying it's kind of, I guess it would be, what would you call severe, or a little bit more severe here?
You got
things.
Yeah, it probably is. It probably is, because you got a lot more people than we got in a smaller area. Okay. So, but it's, I figure I need to fight ignorance and stupidity with ignorance and stupidity, because that's all they understand. So if they're going to do something like try to start shoving stuff up against my stuff on the belt, I'll just put the thing back further, because I don't want your Tostitos falling over into my side and me get charged for it, because then I got to have an interaction with the clerk over here that I don't want to have. Those aren't mine. Punky over here couldn't wait. He was a little quick on the trigger. So, I don't know.
Last one that I'll say, it happens so much where I've got one person only left in the line and I'm next. Mm-hmm. And the lady tells the other lady, "Oh, I forgot this, and that. I'll be right back." And they walk away, and you're sitting there like a bee, waiting for, and it's like, what?
See, I will speak up on something like that. Oh, are you kidding me? No. Pay for this and then go back and get it. No.
They do it all the time. They do it all the time.
That doesn't happen. You know what? I can't remember the last time that's happened to me.
You've seen it happen. What?
I have seen it happen.
Okay.
And I have also seen clerks say, "Okay, well then," and then you'll have to go to the end of the line and cancel the entire order, because they get paid by the hour. They don't care. And so it's just like, no, you'll have to go back to the end of the line, because we've got all these people waiting. We can't do that.
It's a little, there's a lot of little rude little bitty bitties that occur that one observes.
Well, a lot of people think they're entitled to this, that, and the other, and they're just not. You're just another schlub like me, hoping you get 50,000 miles out of a set of tires. You're not special. Nobody made you queen of the produce section. So,
I mean, There's this, I don't know what the skit is, but there's a comedy skit where there's a guy. Oh, I think it was from the Me, Myself, and Irene movie.
Okay, never saw it.
Oh, it's freaking fun. It's so funny, dude. It really is fun. Me, Myself, and so basically the guy's a cop in Canada, a Mountie or something to that effect. And he's got a split personality, and it can break at any time. And he goes from being a very pleasant guy to a very nasty individual, but in a funny, the situations are fun. So he's in line, and a lady comes right behind him and says, "Excuse me, officer." He turns to, "Yes. Could I just? I'm in a hurry. Can I just purchase this one bottle of detergent?" And he says, "Oh, sure, of course." And he's got like 5 or 6 items on the conveyor belt. And he says, "Of course." And then she says, "Thank you." And she turns around, she says, "Come on, kids!" And the whole family with the cart and the stuff, they go right in front of him. And that triggers one of his crazy episodes. But whatever. I've seen that happen too.
I've never seen anything like that. And I'd say, okay, wait a minute, stop. You don't just have one item. I'm going first. No, you can't be a doormat. Don't be a jerk, but don't be a doormat. Because I'm telling you, everywhere you leak, somebody's going to try to hang a bucket and collect for themselves. So if you're, I was taught to be polite. I was taught to be courteous to people. I hold doors open. If I'm walking into a store and I happen to reach it first, I'll push it open, and I don't mind. I'll hold the door and let folks go. And that's great. I was taught to be polite. I just don't care. I don't mind. I'm not in that big of a hurry to where me going to get a Dr. Pepper is going to, I can't go run over and grab my Dr. Pepper so I can get up to the counter in front of you. I'm just not that competitive. I just don't care.
I mean,
half of them are going to spend more time looking for what they want than I am anyway. I don't go into the store unless I know what I want. But it's just weird stuff. I just don't have time for the competition. I let me get my stuff and let me get out of there, and then I'm done. And this is also a benefit of the self-checkout. Yeah. Because just now we're just starting to see lines for the self-checkout. But if you've got 1 or 2 things, they've got 6, 7, 8 little express lane checkouts on both ends of the line of cash registers, and you walk over, bloop, 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 scan those 3 things, get them, and gone.
Yeah. I'm starting to like it as well. At when they first arrived, and I remember I felt like such a freaking what do you call Neanderthal? So I walked up to it and I really felt antiquated. And I shouldn't, because I'm from the computer age, the birth of the computer age, really. Yeah. Well, I walked up to the machine and there were so many buttons on it. And so little like places to put things. And I just stood there the first time. I was like, what the heck is going on? No, I need a real person to just help me. All I want to do is pay for it. I was standing there and I was thinking, all I want to do is pay for this thing. Why can't I pay for it? Yeah. That was my battle. And because it does have like the little coin dispenser, the little this that, and then it's got the screen has information on it, and it's like before I used to give them money, they'd give me a receipt and I'd leave. So it took me at least a couple of times to start to warm. No, it took me a couple of times to warm up to it, really.
Yeah, it did me too. And at first I didn't want to go because my dad was a retail clerk for 32 years. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that machine is taking somebody's job.
That's what I was thinking too.
But then it suddenly struck me, well, Mark, when was the last time you went into the bank and got money out from the teller? If you do go to the bank, it's to deposit a check. 99 times out of 100, if you need cash, you'll go to the ATM. Like earlier today, I needed to get some money to pay a guy. I went over to the ATM at a bank that I don't even bank at and got money out and came back and paid him. I didn't go into a bank and write a check and talk to the teller. So I don't have a problem doing that. I don't have a problem getting online and ordering from Amazon when I could carry myself down the road and buy it in person.
Mm-hmm.
So why should I have a problem with using self-checkout? I don't care about the jobs that are lost from that other aspect of life. Why do I care so much about this? Because make no mistake, if it is possible for your job to be done by a machine, eventually it will be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a fact.
Yeah.
You know, and we're all happy and go lucky about this contactless shopping and this, that, and the other, where you get online and you fill out your grocery order, then you pull up in front of the store and text them on your phone and it's in the trunk. Well, okay, you've provided a job to a shopper, but you've taken away other jobs too. You know, the people that stock the shelves and all this, that, and the other, because all they got to do is pull things from back in the back room to put in the box, your boxes or your bags or whatever. So, you know, we like to pick our battles, and sometimes it seems like we're doing a little bit, we're feeling morally superior when we really shouldn't be, you know.
Yeah. I did want to mention because one of our viewers, and I believe it was Rick French, he said that how about full carts in the express line, and I've actually been not guilty of the full cart, but it's funny. I will go up to and I know I have 11, no kidding, 11 items, and I'll ask, look, I have 11. This is how stupid, like, the politeness of the thing, because I was just taught that way.
Yeah. Same here.
And I was like, I have 11. Is it okay if I can go? And it's actually even because most people will go in with 15, 20, even full carts, like he was mentioning. And I'm here, the idiot, saying, do you think 11 is okay? There's nobody else there. Like, if somebody came with 10, they'll have to move over and this and that. And you usually see the checkout person looking like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on, dumbass.
Yeah. I've had them do that. I've been in line with the basket with 15, 20 items in it. And the person over at the 10 items or less will look at me, look at my basket and go, come on. And I'm like, okay, cool. Thanks. I'll head over and get it done. It's no big deal. I've never been confronted about having more than 10 items. Never, not once. But I don't abuse the privilege. If I've got 11 or 12, I'll go get the 10 items or less. But it's, you know.
Hey to Sherry.
Hey, Miss Sherry. Yeah, but anymore, I prefer the self-checkout. I don't want the conversation because I've told you about this before, man. Here in this small town, you do not go up to the checkout line, throw your stuff on the belt, and look at the clerk and say, how you doing? Because they will tell you. And there are no short stories in this valley. And I mean, you're sitting there having a good old time, having a nice long chat, and it takes 3 times as long to get all your stuff into the bags, you know? And it's like, oh my God.
I was thinking about that because you've mentioned this in the past. And by the way, we do have a website where you can catch all our previous episodes. It's called Trampled Underfoot Podcast.com. And there's a button. You could press that and go into our Wayback Machine section, and you'll catch a lot of different topics, and we're all across the board. I was thinking about that. You've mentioned it before in a previous episode. Oh, great. Now my dog he starts scratching and making all sorts of noise. Give me 1 second.
Oh, that's his job, you know?
In order to avoid in a small town that, I just figured, I thought, because you had mentioned this before, I said, what if you come up with something like, lady, these are my items, and I've got a severe stomach ache, so let's just ring me up, and I gotta go. Nice to see you. Let's do this.
Well, you say, how you doing? And they say, oh, I'm doing just great. How you doing? You say, not so well. I'm feeling kind of sick. Then they're like, oh, okay, well, we'll get you out of here, sugar, that kind of thing.
Okay.
You know, so you can kind of play it off, but it's no big deal. It's just one of those. It's just most folks here are friendly. And if you they see that as you're striking up a conversation, and they're more than happy to have a conversation with you.
Right.
You know, like I'll go up there and go, "How you doing today?" And I'll go, "You know what? I think I'm going to make it." And they'll usually laugh and go, "Well, that's good." I say, "Yeah, it was touch and go earlier, but I think I'm going to make it." You know, and then the conversation's on. You know.
Yeah. Well, no, that does exist here. So people here in Miami are talkative, and it's a talkative culture, particularly around coffee stations that dot the landscape across Miami and Dade County. You'll have people park at shopping centers and strip malls, and typically they're on the corner, or they could be anywhere along that little strip mall, but they're typically on the corners, and there'll be windows with that sort of counter that sticks outside of the thing, and then people walk up, they'll order coffee, smoke cigars, lottery tickets, or whatever, and they'll sit there and they'll strike up conversations just randomly, and so there is a culture of that, but there's certain scenarios where you kind of like, you don't want to have long extended sort of interactions.
It's kind of strange talking about that being a kind of a cultural thing. I don't know. I've seen it because I've seen it all over the place. It depends on where you are. If you're sitting in a doctor's office waiting room, everybody is silent and trying to be quiet. They don't want to make eye contact. Everybody's looking through a 6-month-old magazine that's had the cover ripped off of it. You don't even know what it is. And everybody is just absolutely silent. But if you're sitting side by side in a bar, it doesn't matter if you've known the guy next to you for 30 years or 30 seconds. He's your best friend, and you're going to BS about whatever's on your mind, whether you agree with him about it or not.
Yeah.
So I guess it just depends on the situation. I just don't think that the cereal aisle is the place to have a philosophical discussion.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. I see it's freezing. My video froze.
Yeah.
I have a very strange look on my face in there. Okay, it finally caught up. I don't know what's going on.
Nope. I don't know if it's might as well say my internet's been acting funky with that sort of thing. But you're saying that my video is continuous and yours is the one that freezes. Like you're seeing me moving around, but you're the one that's freezing.
Yeah, and it's just my video. Has my audio been okay?
Your audio's been fine, but here's the thing. It's a weird scenario because I've seen it happening to me when I open a tab. It'll I'll open a secondary tab and it'll freeze and then it'll go. And then if I open another one, it'll freeze. Whatever I do, there's a little delay and then it goes. I don't know what the heck is going on, but could it be that since we're using this software, let's say right now, you're being routed through me and then back out, or is that not?
We're both syncing up online. So I don't know what's going on. Now that you mention it, I have got a bunch of pages and tabs open. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages open. And on this page right here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tabs open. So, but I've got a workhorse of a computer over here with more RAM than I'll ever use, or so I thought. So it looks like it's time for me to go buy some RAM chips and double up.
I've got to do. I got to do that too. I need to purchase a video card.
Welcome to Geek Chat.
So you had some things that you that you were going to bring up.
It's absolutely 100% totally unrelated to anything we were just talking about. Just know that. That
sounds perfect.
Okay. Well, how was that for a segue?
Yeah, we just did. We crossed that bridge.
I heard, this has been a few weeks back now. I heard a name that I had heard before, but I hadn't really looked him up all that much. Let me back up about 6 steps here and start from scratch. You have heard, of course, of Robinson Crusoe.
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever seen a movie or read the book, Robinson Crusoe?
I had the book. I had a few adventure books that my aunt used to buy, and I had like a little shelf library, let's say. I don't know that I sat, and it was left to my own devices to read, I would skim through these things, but never. I saw movies, but
Okay.
but that's about it.
So basically the story. The guy was shipwrecked.
Yeah.
And the various adventures.
Yeah.
Were you aware that this year that book is 302 years old?
Oh, wow.
It was written in 1719.
Holy smokes, really?
Yeah. Did you also know that it's based on a true story?
I think so. Well, I don't have an opinion either way, but
it was inspired by a true story. So in order to tell you that story about how Daniel Defoe came up with his story of Robinson Crusoe, I got to go back to two other guys. It'll all come around in the end.
Okay.
And I'm talking about William Dampier and Alexander Selkirk. Have you heard of either of those people? Okay. William Dampier has a few records. He is the first person to circumnavigate the globe 3 times. And his first circumnavigation was in 1679. Okay. Now, Dampier was not a nice guy. None of these people were. They were pirates and privateers. And you know the difference between, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. For those that don't, a pirate is just a thief. They'll attack any vessel at sea and rob it. Doesn't matter who. A privateer has a letter of marque from the governor or the government of their nation that gives them license to attack and rob ships under the flag of a country that they're at war with. So at this time, it was the British and the Spanish. So William Dampier was a navigator and pilot and an adventurer, a pirate, a privateer, the whole thing. And he wrote a book called A New Voyage Around the World after his first circumnavigation. He wrote that book in 1697.
Wow.
And it was an absolute sensation. And one of the fun side notes of it is that book was so popular and still is so popular. It was first published in 1697. It has never gone out of print. You can still order it today. It's never gone out of print.
Amazing.
Every sailor, every captain, every pilot, every navigator had a copy of Dampier's. They just call it Dampier's Voyages. He wrote 3 books in total about his various adventures, but that one is certified. I mean, 100%. It's one of the oldest continuously in print books in the world. I think only the Bible beats it, but I may be wrong on that. But it's never gone out of print. Anyway,
I thought the one that would have come close is Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, but
well, Men Are From Earth, Women Are From Earth. Deal with it. That's my book. So Dampier, like I said, he was not a nice guy, but he did do a few good things and a few neat things. He was also he was on the ship that basically discovered Australia for the Europeans. The Chinese had been there before, but they didn't know that at the time. And they landed
to Australia?
The Chinese had been to Australia before, but the British didn't know that at the time.
Gotcha.
So he was credited with discovering, quote unquote, Australia. And while they were there, since there was nobody to raid, nothing to pillage or anything like that, he started writing down and making sketches of plants and animals that they found there. And when they eventually returned back to England, the academics of the time just went absolutely nutso over his writings and paid him handsomely for them, because he had documented so many creatures and plants that they had never heard of or seen before. And some that they had, but they were amazed that they had been that far away from what was considered the old world in Europe. Well, it was during one trip on, was it the second circumnavigation? No, it was during the War of the Spanish Succession, when
The
England,
Bourbons and the Habsburgs.
right, exactly. They were on an expedition in 1703 to the South Pacific Ocean. So they left Ireland in September, carrying letters of marque from the Lord High Admiral, and they were authorized to seize, take over any Spanish treasure vessel they came across, and raid any Spanish settlement that they thought they had the guts to raid. So they took off on this expedition, and aboard this expedition was also another man by the name of Alexander Selkirk. Now, Alexander Selkirk was not a nice guy either, but he was a very smart man, a very able seaman himself, and a very good navigator. And when they went to raid a port in Central America, they decided they didn't have the people to raid this particular city, so they kind of turned around and headed back. But they did commandeer and raid a ship, and one of Dampier's mates, I guess, took over as captain on this ship called the Cinque Port, with Alexander Selkirk aboard that. They got to the Juan Fernandez Islands off the coast of Chile, and it was there Selkirk was just, complaining up one side and down the other about the condition of this ship. It was worm-eaten, it was rotting, it was unseaworthy. They said, this thing is going to fall apart. When we get up here to these islands to reprovision with fresh water and find food, let's do some repairs. And the captain,
they were operating as privateers, or
privateers.
Okay,
they were operating as privateers in a captured Spanish ship.
Okay,
and all the captain wanted to do was argue. And so they got to Juan Fernandez Islands, to a island called what's it called? Let me look at it again. Mas de Terre? Is that what it called? Man, I can't find it. Anyway, Masa Tierra, located in the Juan Fernandez Islands, about 400 miles off the coast of Chile. Well, they had a knockdown, drag-out fight, and Selkirk finally just said, to hell with it, put me ashore. I'd rather sit on this island by myself than sail another mile with you, because that thing is falling apart. So the captain said, all right, fine. So they put him ashore. They gave him a musket, gave him a couple of pistols, powder, ammunition, a couple of axes, all of his clothes and instruments and everything, a few blankets. And as they were getting into the longboat to go back out to the ship, Selkirk said, you know what? This is stupid. I've changed my mind. Captain said, tough. You wanted it. You got it. And left him there. Marooned him on the island. They got back into the ship, and about 30 days later, sure enough, the ship broke up and all hands were lost.
So he did the smart thing regardless.
The problem was nobody else knew it. He ended up being stranded there on that island by himself for 4 years and 4 months. Having to conserve the powder and shot that he had, and having to watch out for, I mean, he lived off of feral goats and feral pigs, but he was by himself. I mean, he had nobody there at all. There was one instance where he fell down a cliff, and the only reason he didn't break his back, he landed flat on his back on a rocky outcrop. The only reason he didn't break his back is because he landed on the goat he had just slaughtered and was dragging back to his campsite. That saved his life. But he still spent 2 days laying there recovering, and then finally was able to get up and move around.
Holy smokes.
4 years and 4 months. During that 4 years and 4 months, the island was visited by 2 Spanish vessels who also came ashore to reprovision, get fresh water, find food, and everything else. He had to hide from them because his name was known to the Spanish, and they were on orders to kill on sight, basically. So he hid. He ran for his life. He was spotted on one trip, and he ran. And he said in his diaries, they said they got so close to him that they actually stopped and urinated on the tree he was hiding in. Wow. and didn't look up. Thank the Lord. So after 4 years and 4 months, he was finally rescued by William Dampier, who came to reprovision on the island. And when he saw that it was a British ship, he, of course, went absolutely crazy and jumped for joy in this, that, and the other. So Dampier picked him up. They ended up, they were on their way back to England. On their way back, they captured another Spanish ship, which Selkirk took command of, and they went back to England. His book was a major hit with the Admiralty, and it went into print, and life looked great for him. He soon reverted back to his evil ways and was thrown in jail for having a fight somewhere. Then in court, got into a fist fight with his lawyer and spent 2 years in jail. After he got out of jail, after being celebrated as this hero, he told his story and sold a book. He ended up going back to sea and died of yellow fever off the coast of Africa, a forgotten person.
Wow. What a story.
Now, that was Alexander Selkirk. William Dampier came along, and not only did he make several expeditions around the world, he wrote all of the definitive stories about the flora and fauna of Australia and what have you. And he has, besides the books, he has several things to his legacy, and this is some fun stuff. The words, for instance, barbecue, avocado, chopsticks, and subspecies in his writings were the first times they were ever appeared in print, and they're quoted in the Oxford English Dictionary as he is the reference to bringing those words to the English language. Wow. And I think probably the absolute best thing he ever did. I mean, you got to talk about the trips around the world and all of the books and everything else. He recorded the first English language recipe for guacamole.
That's insane, dude.
This guy lived a hell of a life. Like I said, he was not a nice man. But
what did he do that wasn't nice?
Well, they were active in slavery, number one.
Oh, okay.
They were pirates before they became privateers, meaning they didn't give a ding dong whose ship it was. They would just attack it, capture it. And those who want to join our crew, great. Those of you who don't want to join our crew, shark bait. Doesn't matter if you're a man, woman, child, nothing. This is all in the name of me. The only good things he did was he wrote everything down. He kept meticulous records of courses, wind speeds, currents, and his notes were used in maps, are still used in maps today. Even online, I mean, calculators and things of that nature, they use his figures as a basis because he knew what he was doing and he knew what to look for.
So during those times of piracy and whatnot, just associated with what you're saying, the British held Jamaica. Before they held Jamaica, it was under control of the Spanish. The British went out to the Caribbean to take over not Jamaica, but another place, and I forget which island it was, because the Caribbean, I mean, that's where Pirates of the Caribbean and the whole thing, all the adventures and stuff. So it's a very adventurous. They went to take out another island, which I forget which one. It could have been either Cuba or it could have been some other, but what happened was that they couldn't take it. They couldn't take it from the Spanish. So this is what had happened. To be more specific, not with the place, but with the detail. They couldn't take the island, not Jamaica, the other island that I don't know the name of, but when they couldn't take it and they had been defeated, they were going to go back to England, but they decided not to do it because the king was not going to be happy and would have jailed them and all that. They discussed this and they said, let's take something else. And at least we can take the king some property, some island, and that'll balance it out. Because the king wanted whatever island it is. I don't know if it was Cuba or
Bermuda or something like that.
It could have been one of those, but it was too well fortified, and they couldn't do it. So they went to Jamaica, and they overtook Jamaica. There's a strip of land that existed that became a pirate town. But these people went back. Once they conquered it, they left some provisions and they left some forces, and then they took off back to England with the news that, well, we didn't capture what you wanted, but we did get this. The king jailed them.
Oh, wow.
He tossed them in jail. He said, yeah, well, that's not what I wanted. This is not what I wanted. What I wanted is this. And you didn't give it to me. So he threw them in the freaking jail. But the people that were left in Jamaica and in that strip, they were there. They knew that the Spanish were, because the whole battle was that, right? Like what you were saying, is the Spanish and the British for control of the Americas. And of course, you had the other groups. There were the French
and the Portuguese.
But these two were at odds, and particularly because of the gold. So the British that were there on the island, they're like, we've got some problems. We don't have enough men to secure this place, but we're going to have to do how we can. So they guarded it as best they could and hoped that at this outcropping island, the Spanish would not even be aware, because it's a minor area.
Right.
Well, what happened was that the Spanish really weren't aware because it was a minor area. They were busy acquiring gold, fighting other British ships in situations like what you explained, which was fantastic. Well, these people had piracy and prostitution on the island, and they couldn't defend it at one point. And so they decided to do what you were mentioning, which was privateering. So they said, listen, we'll join forces. We're going to give you a certified thing and you protect us. And they did that job. And privateering began there in that area with those intentions. And they sure did. They went after gold. They went after Spanish, and they brought wealth. And I don't know the name of this little outcropping place, but eventually it fell to the sea because there was like some sort of like
volcano or something like that,
like some sort of earthquake, tsunami, and so the whole place like just sank into the mud. But it's like part of Jamaica or off of Jamaica, and it was a huge hub for piracy. And when you hear in the British say 2 bits or 1 bit or whatever, that actually comes from Spanish coin,
right? Some Spanish doubloons, yeah.
And they would actually break them and pay in little sections and stuff. they had gathered a lot of gold that had been on ships that Spain was trying to get back to Spain, and then the privateers and the pirates. It was an all out fight amongst all these powers in the ocean. What an adventure! But yeah, that I just wanted to throw that in because I think it ties in kind of with
it does. It does. And did you know that that's where we get the word buccaneer from? A buccaneer was a pirate in the Caribbean. There were no buccaneers in the Pacific and the South Atlantic and the North Atlantic. There were pirates, but buccaneers were confined to the Caribbean. And Mediterranean, they were called corsairs. Corsairs were pirates and privateers that were confined to the Mediterranean. I didn't know that until I started looking into all this stuff. It's pretty cool.
It's a cool era because, well, we grew up watching all these fantastical pirate stuff, but it's a cool era, and it was over control of land, but it was also how much gold we can take for our own, you know? It just insanity.
Yeah. Lindsay is saying that you're talking about Port Royal.
Port Royal.
Yeah. Earthquake liquefied the sand it was built on and it sunk.
But till then,
yeah,
they had a huge society that was a debauchery, right? It was complete. Yeah. Whatever that might have looked like, you could only imagine, like you've seen it in movies. It had to have been insanity, dude.
Well, it's total anarchy. It's lawlessness. Just, whoever fired first or stabbed first was the winner, and that's it. Total lawlessness. There was no law and order. So you pretty much do what you want, but you face the consequences every time you walk outside. So, hey.
I always enjoyed the era of the pirate era. I always enjoyed it. There's something just adventurous about it. But that's what we. Well, go ahead. You're going to say that.
Yeah, we have really romanticized it, and we think of the Errol Flynn and now the Johnny Depp, the Pirates of the Caribbean, and all this other good stuff, and it just wasn't that way. I mean, there's a lot of myths about what happened. I mean, some of the rules on a pirate ship were more strict than on a Royal Naval vessel. I mean, no music on Sundays, lights out at 9 o'clock, and just all kinds of stuff. There's lots of rules. I mean, the captain could be overridden by the quartermaster in everything except battle. And the captain didn't have special quarters or anything. He slept down with all the other sailors. And so did the quartermaster. I mean, it was, and the penalty for most infractions was just death. They didn't have time to mess with you. If it was a petty infraction, it was the punishment was keel hauling. Now, you've heard of being keel hauled, right?
Not really.
But okay, you've never heard the phrase keel hauled?
I don't remember.
Boy, they really keel hauled me this time. Keel hauling was they would float, get a rope underneath the ship.
Okay, now I know what you're going to say.
Hook it to your feet and throw you overboard and drag you underneath the ship and let your body get scraped up by barnacles and splinters and jagged chunks of wood from the bottom of the ship and everything else. Bring you back aboard and throw you on your bunk, and that was it. That was keel hauling.
You didn't want to do that.
No. But they also had, and this was also in the Royal Navy too, the British Royal Navy, because you had cabin boys and you had powder boys, and they were kids as little as 7-8 years old. Yeah. That all they did was they ran and they fetched powder and shot and everything while they were in combat, because they had to have all hands who could fight ready to fight.
Yeah.
So they had these kids, and if the kid did something, their punishment was called kissing the gunner's daughter. And that's where they would strap you over the butt end of the breech end of a cannon and spank you with not the cat of 9 tails. This only had 7 tails, and it was called the boy's cat. So you'd get like 10 lashes or whatever. And they called that punishment kissing the gunner's daughter.
You know, in reality, what it might have been with these people is a bunch of clinically psychopathic people on a vessel just going hog wild across in reality, because no sane well, again, like we always like to say, I'm thinking in terms of the 21st century, but even so, I think most normal humans across the spectrum are, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like you're stuck in a place that you can't get out. And if you do, you're going into the water and there's sharks and all sorts.
Sure.
You're in a place with a bunch of guys. It's not sanitary for the most part. I mean, well, then again, you have
for any part. So yeah, but most of them couldn't swim. See, the name swimming with the dogs, they called sharks sea dogs for years. And most sailors could not swim. They were deathly afraid of being eaten by sharks, with good reason in a lot of waters. But that wasn't any kind of a recreation they wanted to partake in. Thank you very much. So, you know, you were kind of choiceless. If your ship was taken over, you could either join or die. And that was it. So
last thing I'll say, I always found it awesome, but ridiculous, where you have the plank, you know, they're going to walk the guy in the plank and the guy's walking up to the plank and it's the end and he takes a jump and he bounces and does a catapult around. He grabs the swords off of the other two. He slices them. He battles through and finally he conquers and he takes over the frickin' galleon. It's just such an exaggeration. You know that once you're stuck on that plank and you're headed towards it, you are so compromised as far as your ability to, or they would bounce, jump down, and with their hands they'd hold on the edge and then they'd catapult back up. It's so ridiculous.
Well, what I loved about those movies was that ship was always rock steady. There was never any that ship wasn't rocking or rolling or going over breakers or anything like that, you know.
Yeah,
it was always just rock steady, so the guy could walk out there and have a conversation, you know.
And they weren't small, but they weren't like,
they weren't huge, no.
You know, so that's another thing to take into consideration. You have this vessel that's, you know, rocking through the waves and you have the wind, and it's not like you're on terra firme, like
right.
you're saying, you know.
Okay, one last thing that I forgot that I was having a problem with the name of that island that Alexander Selkirk was dropped off at.
Okay.
It was Mas a Tierra. But in 1966, the government of Chile made it a lot easier for me because I don't have to remember Mas a Tierra anymore, because they officially renamed it Robinson Crusoe Island.
Oh, wow.
In 1966. And an island 100 miles further out to sea, they named Alexander Selkirk Island.
Amazing.
But they kind of got it backwards because Selkirk never went to Selkirk Island. He was on Robinson Crusoe Island.
So that's the official island?
That's the official name. It was officially changed in 1966. The government of Chile it's now called Robinson Crusoe Island. And if you look it up on Google Earth or just Google Maps, it'll zip right to it.
I'm going to look at it.
And in fact, there was an archaeological expedition in 2002 that went to one of the mountains that is named Selkirk's Lookout. And they were digging around up in there and they found parts to a couple of his instruments. And they know they were his because they're engraved with his name on it.
Oh, wow.
So.
And he lived there for 4.5 years, you said?
4 years, 4 months. Living off of the local fruits and vegetables and feral goats, pigs, fish, crabs, lobsters, whatever he could catch.
It was, I mean, it sucks because you need, you know, human, but as long as you have water and supplement, And I don't know how the storms are in that area, but
well, I don't know either. There were caves on the island, so I imagine he was, snug as a bug in a rug in one of them.
that is
But
scary though.
oh,
The
sure,
there's animals that you don't know
sure,
how huge of an animal or how wild of an animal,
true.
and you're kind of like, it's not, you need a house or a shack.
Well, sure, but I mean, without having that, I mean, you do what you can, and it's not like he was completely unarmed. He had knives and he had pistols and a rifle. Well, not a rifle, but a long gun, because
Yeah.
I don't think rifling had been invented yet. But and he had powder and shot. He conserved it because he knew it wasn't going to last forever. But so that was it. That was the tale of William Dampier, Alexander Selkirk, and Robinson Crusoe. And Daniel Defoe got the inspiration for Robinson Crusoe from Alexander Selkirk's story.
Very cool. Well, I enjoyed that. I hope you guys did too. I do want to mention that we go live every Tuesday at 6:30 in the Pacific Coast and 9:30 on the East Coast over here on YouTube under Trampled Underfoot Podcast on YouTube. But we also have our Facebook page, and we do post a lot of stuff over there under the same name, right? Trampled Underfoot Podcast on Facebook. We post a lot of stuff as far as about what we talk about here in the show. If there's interesting links or little information tidbits, pictures, we'll add those so you can go and like that page and maybe leave a comment if you have an idea about a future episode or whatever. So keep that in mind. And we are also sponsored by
Steve Nealon over at Harneal Media. There he is over in the chat. He's with us every week. He's the man. He has the plan. If you're looking to start a website, if you're thinking about some merch, maybe you'd like a web store, you have items of your own to sell, or you want to get that merch on a web store and drive traffic to said web store to sell your items, Steve's the guy that can help you out. He can hook you up with not only with the web store, but with a print-on-demand company that'll take care of you. That's harnealmedia.com. And he's the man, the webmaster to the stars.
Awesome. Well, you know what, you guys out there, thank you for hanging with us. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will catch you guys next time. So have a good week.
Y'all take care. Okay, clean break. There we go. Let's get back into the Mark uncomfortably knows too much about that. And I don't know what Jim Bashirs was saying when he said, I uncomfortably know too much about that. Now, there's a few things about these guys that I didn't include. Oh, we're going to hang around and chat with you all, Jim, but that's cool.
That's what we do, Jim.
I don't know if he jumped ship or what.
Well, that's hey, what we do is we have decided to do the show, and we do, we upload that, and then we do the little bit of chatting afterwards. So we have a clean break, and then we talk a little bit, and then we boogie. So that's how that works for the moment,
Boogity, then shoe. So let's see. Linda brought up one here. She was talking about dragging people through the barnacles, Jim says. Okay. Yeah, the keel hauling. Yeah, I didn't know much of this stuff. I had heard the word keel hauled before, but I never really paid much attention to it, and I didn't know what it was. And just, being the word nerd that I am, I looked it up, and it was just like, dang, man. No thanks. I can't even imagine that. If you didn't drown, because you don't know how fast they're pulling you.
I mean, that sounds like a dangerous scenario.
Well, yeah. I mean, they didn't do that because they liked you.
That doesn't sound. I think they were all a little bit psycho.
Yeah. Oh, they were.
They can't be nice, normal people, or normal.
A lot of them were wanted for something, so they didn't really have a whole, a heck of a lot of. Most folks were running away from something or someone, but if your ship is taken over and you're pressed into service, you're pressed into service. And if they didn't want you, or you didn't want to join them, wanted to do the noble thing and be on the side of right, okay, fine, overboard, and off we go with our ships. And what happens to you happens to you. So
I mean, what are you going to do? A lot of ships were built in Santander, Spain, on for the Spanish fleet, but a lot of them also were built in the Netherlands, in the Spanish Netherlands, during the 15 through 1600s, until they no longer had the Netherlands, and they would boat their ships that were built over there. They'd boat them, they'd port them in Santander, and some were built there, and all that. So these galleons and ships and frigates and all that were built for the Spanish Navy to go out and do that. So I'm wondering what more stories I'm sure there's plenty of stories out there.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've never read Dampier's Voyages, but it's loaded with them. And there are several. I mean, several books that he wrote. Let me bring that back up. You can still get A New Voyage Around the World. That's his first book from 1697. You can still buy it on Amazon. It's $14. There. You can get his second book is 1695. So they're still available. And Robinson Crusoe is still available. Now, Robinson Crusoe was first published in 1719, but it went out of print 3 times, where Dampier's Voyages has never gone out of print.
That has to be an incredible, if you think about, so did he have what do they call it when you have an assistant to write it? Like a ghost, or not a ghostwriter, but whatever, somebody that writes and you tell the tale and then they organize it for you.
No, he wrote it while they were at sea. I mean, he would collect plants and everything and take notes as he was collecting these plants.
Yeah.
And they would press them, dry them, preserve them, so they had something to show when they went back, because there were a multitude of ways for them to make money off of all this stuff. Writing the books, telling the stories, the treasure they brought back, any artifacts or what have you. There were lots of income sources. But even after all of that, when Selkirk died, no, it wasn't Selkirk. When Dampier died, he died in 1715 in London. But with all of that fame and fortune and everything else, when he died, his estate was £2,000 in debt. And back then, £2,000 was several $1 million. So his that last expedition he was on, let's see, okay, on the voyage when they rescued Selkirk in 1709, that expedition, when they got back, with that Spanish galleon, oh man, I can't pronounce the name, Nuestra Señora de la Encarnación de y Desengaño. Okay, I don't know. But most of it from the capture of that galleon that Selkirk sailed back to England, that was $22 million they brought back in today's money. To go from a big part of that to £2,000 in debt, it was just wow, Yeah,
it's no wonder there was great animosity between the British and the Spanish with all the money that they were bringing back in gold and silver and jewels, and then all the piracy occurring and vibing for land. You could see how that could easily escalate into all-out war, which it did. But I was going to say that that the writing of it and at the time that the guy wrote it. It's an incredible thing for a person involved in all that to put that into a book format that he writes, and it's a work. And back then, this was a means of the only means really of main mean of transmitting a story and information other than verbally and whatever other, but it was like the most beneficial way to do it because you're conserving it. But I'm thinking to myself, it was easy for him to because if you've adventured so much, you can write a book. But it's a tough thing to even do that. The concept of writing a book.
Yeah. Well, especially writing it for public consumption. But you got to remember that that back then sailing was a lot of boredom. There was a lot of time to think about stuff.
You're right. You
take all your notes, you collate all your notes, and you have a lot of time where you're not doing anything. You get up, you walk around. If you're not on watch or something, and you get up, you walk around, the ship is okay. We're heading in the right direction. You talk to this guy for 15, 20 minutes, and you're back down on your bunk writing.
I wonder,
had jobs assigned to them.
I wonder if they had, because we know of ink, pen and ink and stuff, or the feather and ink and this and that, and then they had the a little bit more modernized ink, but did they have pencils?
They didn't have the graphite pencils like we know. They still use the quill pens, but a lot of them wrote with soot from the lamp, from an oil lamp. They would collect up that soot and mix it up with grease or whatever.
That's
whatever
great.
Kind of oil, from the cook, and just mix it up and write with that.
That's freaking awesome, dude.
Because most books back then, the Dutch actually were some of the best chroniclers, I guess you would say, of their voyages. But all of their stuff was done in private and to be secret. All their charts, all their notes on winds and tides and currents and things like that, and navigation, which direction we went this way, and how many days before we hit Japan or whatever. All that was done in secret, and it was called a rudder, Rutter, and that was the pilot and navigator's most prized possession, was his rudder. And if it wasn't under lock and key, it was in his hands. And the minute it left its hands, only to go under lock and key. And that was it. And if the ship was in danger of being captured, it was destroyed. So,
right.
I mean,
they didn't want
games. So for Selkirk to write all this stuff up originally for the Admiralty back in England, but to then release it to the public was just unheard of. That just didn't happen.
That was kind of, what do you call, foresight, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And jumping back over to Robinson Crusoe, and then there's a few things people are saying in the chat that I want to talk about too. Robinson Crusoe, the book, before the end of 1719, the year it was published, it had already gone through 4 editions and was one of the most widely published books at the time. But it's often credited as being the beginning of the realistic fiction as a literary genre, of the fiction based on a true story. A lot of people say that the book Robinson Crusoe was the first. So we'll see. Rick French is asking, I wonder who gets the royalties these days from Dampier's book. Probably the publisher, because there was no copyright back then. I mean, I would imagine that Dampier collected royalties off of it while he was alive, unless he sold away the rights. But Linda says 2,000 pounds in 1719 was $461,900 in today's dollars. Yeah. Wow. So, yeah, I mean, to go from a a major share of $22 million ahead to 461,000 in debt. That's, yeah.
There's a lot of stories of people that did fantastic. There's a lot of people that did fantastic historical things
Mm-hmm.
and lost all their they lost the frickin' shirt off their back,
Lost everything.
and died in squalor. And they have these marvelous histories, but they ended up frickin' broke. What the heck's that all about?
Well, look at Edgar Allan Poe. Literally died in a gutter, drunk.
And he's an iconic.
Yeah.
But you know what I don't like though? I don't like, and I used to think it was cool because that's what the idea of the artist suffers for this and that. It's like, it's ridiculous. So they have to and live, and the destructive end, like, why, and yet it's something that people, well, it makes for a better story, but it's so freaking macabre.
Well, half of them are about half loony to begin with, and then there's also outside influences. And by that, I mean alcohol and drugs and what have you. I mean, you look at all of the expressionist painters in the 1800s and early 1900s, they were just barking mad on absinthe. And, they called it the Green Fairy. I mean, and they painted paintings about it. I mean, so nobody comes up with that after a cup of coffee. Okay.
Well, but there's also like intoxications of like natural intoxications, or what do you call like, I don't want to say lead poisoning, but there's types of poisoning, and then people go wonkers, and then but they survive it, but in their lunacy they create some weird, and then those stories get passed on and whatnot, but it's not normal. That's not normal. That's not the natural state of most people.
Yeah. Okay, Linda is saying they think Poe had rabies now, but he was a drunk. Yes, he was a drunk, a big-time drunk. So, Jim Dockrell says, I think Walt Disney took a lot of acid. We've talked about it before. There was a time in the world, actually, because it was America, it was Europe, it was all over the place. From like the 1870s to right about 1912, World War I was in progress. So let's say after World War I. So let's say 1917, 1918, that they called the Great Binge, in that there weren't any laws against the drugs and the stimulants that we think of now. I mean, heroin is a brand name. It was invented by the folks who brought you Bayer aspirin. It was a brand name. You could go buy morphine. You could go buy heroin. You could go buy, you could get morphine in throat lozenges. You got a bit of a sore throat, pop one of those. People were taking codeine for a cough, because codeine is a good cough suppressant. It also makes you loopier than hell. I'm trying to remember what it's called, and somebody out there in the chat knows. It was a morphine. It was an opiate derivative mixed with alcohol and sold as a drink. And Queen Victoria loved the stuff, especially for monthly cramps. I can't remember what it was called, but it was an opiate with alcohol in it. I can't remember. I want to say it starts with an L. That may be wrong. Jim Dockrell saying, ever see some of the ingredients in old-time cough syrup? Yeah, I remember Vicks 44 had codeine in it. Laudanum, that's what it is. Linda says laudanum. Absinthe was alcohol, but it also had wormwood. And that's what made it drive people loopy, was the wormwood. And there's another name for it. Emma. Not Emma.
Am I gonna hurl across the side of the ledge?
Dude, have you ever tasted absinthe? You
I've never.
probably would hurl across oh my God, it's nasty stuff. And I say this as a guy that used to drink quite a bit.
Am I gonna have a headache in the morning?
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. Ugh.
I don't know, dude. So as far as that, we have advanced to a point that won't. I don't think that it's always going to advance, but where we know, thanks to people that study this, certain things cause certain reactions, and therefore, so we've gotten apparently, it seems like it, we've gotten better with the drugs and stuff. But I am one to say that nature provides. It's there. It provides, and I think that along with advances, this stuff should be easily accessible to people across the board.
And that's why it was made. Artemisia, thank you. Artemisia is what it's called. Wormwood, and that's why they restricted access to it, because it went to the other extreme. I mean,
right.
It was a case of we were trying to take care of too many people on tax dollars because they could not / would not take care of themselves. And when it became a burden on the public, they finally said no. I mean, but you could go down to the various catalog stores and you could buy a package for your boys at the front that had cocaine, morphine, laudanum, syringes, needles, the whole thing.
That's insanity. Halloween's
send it to them.
Halloween's must have been fantastic for kids back then. Here's some extra cocaine little candies for you, honey. Thank you. Trick or treat.
Well, soft drinks had cocaine in them. Cocaine was seen as a topical anesthetic.
So everybody was frothing at the mouth. Back then.
Everybody was on something just about. I mean, they were selling morphine and laudanum as a nerve tonic. And it was wiping people out is what it was doing,
Well, hence well, it did solve the problem now, didn't it?
Calm the nerves. Yeah, it did calm the nerves.
Holy
but I mean,
smoke.
it was way out of control. It was way out of hand because there were no laws, there were no restrictions. And you get it, just go to the store and buy it, bring it home, and just rock your socks off.
I like those videos on YouTube that they open up cans and different packages from like 100, 200 years ago, or 100 and some years ago, or 80 years ago. And I know you've seen them, but one of them has like this can that was like, he thought it was a lead can. And he says, and it was like corn, like sweet corn pureed or something like that. And you could see in the wrapper, and the can had like a bit of rust on the outside and stuff. He said, let's open this up and let's check for its contents. And he opened it up and he said, wow, that smells, and he showed it to the camera. That smells like wonderful. It smelled wonderful candy like corn, and it's been in a can for 100 years. And he dumped it in a tray, and you could see the corn there. It did have little bits that didn't look like something we would have nowadays, but it was the corn sitting there. He says, now let's check for the contents. And he like got those little sticks that measure the thing, and the color changes, and the lead, visibly it looked like corn, yellowish and corn, and it smelled good, believe it or not. Oh, at the end he said the top smelled good, but when he dumped it, the bottom started to smell rank. But so he tested it, and when he tested it, the color bars changed. He said, well, the content of lead in this thing is through the roof. The content of this is, so it looked pleasing, but it was a toxic frickin' soup.
Oh yeah. And it was just stuff that people didn't know about. I mean, Marie Curie, her notes and her papers when they discovered radium, and all of their research and everything are in lead-lined chests and will be radioactive for the next 50,000 years. She died of leukemia. Her daughter died of leukemia. She used to carry around a chunk of radium in her purse and show it to people, just pass it around at parties and what have you.
Crazy.
They just didn't know.
Yeah, they didn't know.
So yeah, but sealing something with lead, here's this metal. It's easy to melt. Cool. Man, they just didn't know any better, and it was cheap. Lead was a real valuable commodity. Now it's a toxic waste.
Yeah.
So
Rick said the feds changed the name hemp to marijuana to make it sound Mexican and therefore more dangerous. I don't know that. I think they called it marijuana before in Mexico. No,
I don't know. I really don't know where that name came from. I don't know.
Mary Jane.
I know it was called marijuana way back.
Isn't there a song? I think there's a song La Cucaracha, and they mention it La Cucaracha, and I think that the Cucaracha song is a wartime song. I didn't know that until I looked it up. YouTube is fantastic.
Oh yeah,
and they sing the cucaracha. It no longer can walk, and they were talking about like the other people that they were fighting. I don't know the details, but I saw something like that. But then the cucaracha doesn't have marijuana to smoke. It's just so insane, dude. It makes no sense, but whatever. Huh. They did call it marijuana, but hemp. The idea of hemp, I hear you can't get stoned off of it, but it's a good product where you can make all sorts of things out of it.
Oh yeah. In fact, I'm trying to remember which king it was that made growing hemp mandatory in the North American colonies, because he wanted every patch of land that you could plant hemp, because it was better for us to grow it over here than it was for them to try to ship it to us, because they needed it themselves. I mean, just for rope alone, the amount of hemp that was grown and harvested was crazy.
Washington grew hemp.
Yeah. Lots
and so did a lot of them.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of people that are in the pro, which by the way has been winning the battle for a few years now, in the pro like marijuana consumption category of people, they always mention as one of the attributes in order to further their claim. And I have no problem with that. Like, I could care less what other people do. I mean, do what you want to do, as long as you're not
bugging me. Yeah.
Bugging me. Do what you want.
Or expecting me to pay for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Just do what you want. So, but they always use that. Did you know George Washington? But they'll take it to, and maybe it's true. I don't know if there's any records of him smoking a blunt, let's say, but
I don't know. But to me, that is a weak argument. So what? He did a lot of things. So if you're using that, does that mean everything he did is okay? He did a lot of things. Go research him. Are you telling me that if that's what you're going to hang your argument on, everything he did is okay? Do you really want to go there? Yeah,
but it's funny. You know what I'm saying? It's funny that they but how about this? Because everybody's always going to look for something, in any argument, and it's natural. But you know what I'm saying? It's like drawing Washington with a blunt in his mouth. It's just, I don't know. It's funny. It's funny.
It's just okay, whatever. People are going to think what they want to think, and it doesn't matter to me. Like I say, I don't have time for those folks. Hemp fiber has been valuable and used for a lot of things, but the only reason it was made illegal here in the US was because it's damn near impossible to tell the difference between it and marijuana. So they just got rid of the hemp production here, so they didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, but they shouldn't have to worry about it either way. They shouldn't. That's none of their frickin'. It's nobody's business, in my opinion. Nobody's business. A plant, it's nobody's business. Now you could make arguments against it, obviously. I mean, for goodness sakes, but
a lot of people have. But to each their own. What consenting adults do behind closed doors is just none of my business, and let's leave it that way, okay?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, but the whole rope and production, it was. I think that they sell like
It still
all
is.
sorts of. Don't they sell purses and all sorts of stuff?
Oh yeah. It was never illegal to own items made of hemp. It was never illegal to own that. You could always buy hemp rope. You could always buy hemp cloth, and you could even buy the hemp to spin into yarn or thread to make stuff with.
Is it like a
grow the plant?
Is it like a burlap type?
Yeah. Well, it can be real fine, but it can also be real coarse.
Okay.
You know, the plain old brown hemp rope that everybody knows, the lassos and everything else, that's hemp. And but it can be made finer, it can be made softer. It's real durable. But you know.
Well, I mean, hey, listen, before we go, I think we've had a full I don't know if did you ever have a chance, Linda, and you ever have a chance to watch any of the episodes of Dairy Girls?
No, we have not found them. We don't have Netflix, and I haven't found them yet. So, you know,
Well,
but now I got to turn that I got to turn that around, and I'm going to freak out some of the people over in the chat. Did you ever get a chance to watch The Princess Bride?
Well, I watched it 5 times.
Did you? What was your favorite scene?
The scene where the guy walked down the ways, and then there was that joke, and then the next scene happened, and no, I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay. I think you like the sword fight best.
I can't find it.
Oh, okay.
Like I have Netflix. It's not on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the Amazon Prime thing, and I could check on Xfinity's thing, but they probably, I don't know. I'd have to check. But anywhere else online,
I know it's on Hulu and Disney Plus. I do know that.
I don't have those things.
Yeah. Okay.
See, that's you know. Yeah. But now I will tell you, Netflix is upping their prices, and everything is upping its prices. So, and I hate to do it because I really enjoy Netflix, but I think I'm going to pull the plug on that one. I've had it since like 2000 and who knows what, but no, they keep upping, and I get it, cost of operation, this and that, but that's not none of my business. You know,
do you think it's worth the money? I mean, if you think of it this way, go back to the old video cassette days when you were going down and renting tapes. Do you think you watch enough Netflix to make it worth what's it going up to, $14 or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. So to be fair, it's worth it if you take into consideration back in the day a VHS. What was it, like $3?
Something like that, yeah.
You'd rent it and then you'd have 3 days, right? Yeah. Or something?
2 days, yeah.
2 days, and then you had to bring it back, and if you didn't deliver it, you'd have like a little extra payment for keeping it, remember?
Yeah. You had you paid a fine if you didn't rewind, stuff like
that. So in context of that, I would say that a month, $14 in reality, for access to movies as much as you want. It's not a bad deal. So to be fair, but I'm not happy with the fact that they're upping it, and it's as a consumer, it's my right to stop.
It's your prerogative.
It's my right to stop my feet and do nothing about it. You know.
Oh, so Patrick's Workshop joined us. I see. He's talking about good old late fees. Yeah, Patrick got fined all the time for not rewinding his DVDs.
Yeah,
that made him mad. All right. We better go ahead and land the plane, man. We've been on for an hour and 40 minutes almost.
Yeah. I was going to tell you, I forgot the name of it, but there's this vampire thing that I think it's from Prime or something. It's a series where it's based in London, and it's a bunch of like vampires.
Yeah.
And it's a comedy, and they're interacting in a silly slapstick way with Londoners and or Londoners or Londorians. And they're walking around interacting with them, but they're so inept. They're dangerous, but they're inept, and it's done in such a way that it's super entertaining. I think it's something to do with like because we're evil. Let me see. Oh, it's called What We Do in the Shadows.
What We Do in the Shadows.
There's clips of it. I find it freaking hilarious. What We Do in the Shadows, and like the conversations, it's like so silly, but in a good way. I don't know. Just leaving you guys with that. I think we got to go because we got to go.
And it's your Reddit, so you can pick and choose. Thanks for joining us, y'all. Have a good night.
Later, guys.